everybody, and welcome to 500 Open Tabs. I tricked you.
You did. Okay.
I'm Cometaharian.
And I'm Anna Hillam. Was that the intro?
Welcome back to our show. That's going to be the intro for this week because we were overthinking it as we always do.
We really were. You're right. I'm glad you pressed record.
Yeah, sometimes in
Welcome
life,
back.
you got to just hit record and see what happens and then lose all of your dozens of followers because people are like, why do they make such a word? What did you say? Word salad? We word salad it too much.
Word salad, yeah.
Yeah, I like salads.
Please.
I'm trying to watch my slim figure. Anyway.
Please don't unfollow us. Please.
Speaking of following us, you should follow our Discord because that's where we talk even more, or I do. Hannah forgets that we have a Discord occasionally.
Just outing me, huh?
Yep.
It's like I thought we were friends. No, I do occasionally forget about the Discord, but I also forget most things. So
yeah, to be fair, that's not a reflection of Hannah's thoughts about the Discord. Hannah forgets that we have a podcast or that we're going to record anything, or that we had planned something months in advance. So it's not. That's just par for the course.
It's me. I got some sort of early onset something. We'll see. We'll see how it pans out.
It's charming, thankfully, so people won't really notice it as a problem until it's too late.
For now. That's why you got to make fun of yourself so everyone forgives you when you mess up. That's
true. That's the fundamental lesson of my childhood. Anyway,
Discord.
Discord is cool. Tell your friends. We're saying all this up front because by the end of the podcast, you guys are probably all too tired. But yes, tell everybody about it. Also, I don't remember if we mentioned this in the last episode. I think we did. So we're going to be at San Diego Comic-Con in a couple weeks. By the time this airs, we found out recently that we're going to be doing a panel, which is very exciting. It's going to be an in-person thing.
And listen to us.
You can listen to us IRL in real life.
If I remember.
Yes. Yeah. And it's going to be like, what? We have a panel?
Where am I supposed to be?
100% going to happen.
100%, yeah. It's going to be like an hour before. I'll be like, oh, no.
Yeah. Oh, crap. Oh, no.
Also, we have a Patreon. So if you want to offer support in that way, that'd be great. We're going to start posting stuff there soon. But for now, it's simply to help us pay for our editor. And various monthly payments to
monthly payments and fun stuff that we're going to hopefully reveal by the time Comic-Con rolls around. Anyway, that's pretty good intro, right? I think that's enough of a blurb so we can sort of get into it.
No one cares how we're doing because they know.
Listen, it's fine. They know.
They know.
Not well. No, who's doing well right now? Nobody.
A lot
of people
falling
seem
apart. To be.
Okay, so I believe last week I was the one who started part 1 of the Great Moon Hoax. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this.
I'm excited for this too. If you didn't listen to last week's episode, you're going to want to go ahead and do that because this tab won't make any sense without knowing the context. But honestly, even then, if you did listen to it, this tab may still not make a lot of sense because it's very insane and weird, but I digress. So quick recap. Which you sadly can't choose to skip because this is not Netflix or a television show. In 1835, the New York Sun published a 6-part series written by Richard Adams Locke, pretending to be a scientist named Dr. Andrew Grant, who did not exist, as he followed Sir John Herschel, who did exist, on his journey to Cape Town, which did happen, to set up a fancy new telescope, and claim to see life on the moon, which, as you may have guessed by now, did not actually happen. So you got all that. There's a real
Depends
guy.
on what you believe.
There's a real guy pretending to be a fake guy who followed a real guy on a real journey who saw things that were not real on the moon and seen.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Do it again.
In the first, one more time, but with more emotion and intensity.
Can we just do it one more time?
Yeah. Real guy, real trip, fake events. Boom.
Great.
So in the first 3 parts of the series, he described a bunch of trees and craters and oceans and crap. And he also saw straight up beaver people that walked on 2 legs and lived in tall huts.
Didn't they have flesh bangs?
The flesh flaps. I forgot about that. Or was it the unicorns that had that? I don't remember. I've blocked it out, frankly.
What?
That's right. They all did have the flesh flaps. That's right.
All I've been thinking about are those flesh flaps. It's been 2 weeks.
You were out of town, so we didn't actually get to record on the usual schedule that we do. So I've forgotten some of this stuff. But thank you. I'm glad that you remembered flesh flaps.
How could I forget? And frankly, how could you forget?
I don't know. Just like you forgot the Discord. Anyway. So flesh flat beaver people who walked on two legs and lived in huts and had learned to harness the power of fire. Also, there were unicorns.
Wow.
But the tease I left at the end of the last episode was the main event, which began on day 4, which are the moon bat people, which is where I will pick up the story today.
All right, so
day 4, they're searching far and wide. They've seen all that other stuff. And then Dr. Grant and Sir Herschel finally discover human-like creatures living inside of a ring of red hills that they dubbed, quote, the Ruby Colosseum, which is kind of a nice name.
That's not bad.
Yeah. So the Vespertilio Homo, they were described as being 4 feet tall and covered, except on the face, with short and glossy copper-colored hair, and had wings composed of a thin membrane without hair, lying snugly upon their backs.
Oh, that sounds cozy.
Their faces of a yellowish flesh color was a slight improvement upon that of the large orangutan. I don't know what's with the shade being thrown at orangutans, because I love orangutans. Huge fan, by the way. Oh, yeah. Also, I've talked quite a bit about Planet of the Apes to everybody around me over the past 2 months because of the new movie. I love Maurice is like one of my favorites. I'm assuming you have not seen any of the last few movies. The part that's relevant to you that you would love is Maurice is the big orangutan who's like the chill, smart one who's like really nice. He's like the philosopher of it. At one point when they're trying to like be friends with the humans again in the second one, there's a kid and the kid has, I think it's Black Holes, the graphic novel. And then Maurice is like, that's cool. What's that? I want to read that. So it's canon. That orangutan in that story loves graphic novels. So he's one of us.
He's one of us. Yep.
He would be happy.
Here's the thing. I respect orangutans, but I'm scared of them.
They're solitary creatures, actually. They're really like, they're very chill.
I respect them.
Yeah, they're good.
I don't want to be near one.
I want to be near one. I don't think they want me to be near them.
No.
But that's people in general. But anyway, I move on.
Yeah.
Little bit of orangutan shade, which I don't approve of, but moving on. That's the least of the problematic things from this.
And that's the least of the problematic things I'm going to say today.
Oh, okay, good.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't know what. I don't plan ahead.
Yeah, you never do.
No.
Moving forward, the hair on the head was a darker color than that of the body. And speaking of problematic, closely curled, but apparently not woolly, and arranged in 2 semi-curious semicircles over the temple of the forehead.
Okay.
Quote, we scientifically denominated them as Vespertilio Homo or man-bat, and they are doubtless innocent and happy creatures, notwithstanding that some of their amusements would put ill comport with our terrestrial notions of decorum. Long story short, they watched moonbat people 69 each other out in the open and found it rather quaint.
Oh, they're kink-shaming the moonbat people?
It's a little bit deeper than that, I think. And I'm gonna sort of unpack a little bit of this in terms of what I think. It's gonna get crazier and it'll sort of make sense in context. But this is how some of this ends up being how you say, as the French would say, problématique. But that's sort of the point, arguably.
No. Okay.
Anyway, knowing that this was perhaps too insane, Dr. Grant, again, fake Dr. Grant, assured skeptics that a forthcoming volume would provide certificates from several Episcopal, Wesleyan, and other ministers who in the month of March last were permitted under stipulation of temporary secrecy to visit the observatory and become eyewitnesses of the wonders which they requested to attest. God, I hate this writing so much.
It is too much.
It's so annoying. Speaking of word salad, basically he's like, bro, don't worry. A bunch of priests and shit saw this and they're going to validate this in like 6 months from now. So just trust me for now.
Doesn't that
and everybody was like, cool.
Go against everything like the churches believe? Like if there's moon people. Anyway, go on. I'm getting too deep into like theology.
No. But that's what I'm saying. So that's part of it. Is remember I said this in the last part that the theology. I mean, I guess the contradiction in terms was like if God has made these, planets and the moon and all this, of course they would have creatures that lived on there that loved God and worshipped him and said that like. Do you know what I mean? Like it's this.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about the Bible to know if space is. I don't think they talk about space in the Bible, do they?
No.
But it's like an extrapolation, which was, coming up at the same time as these astronomers were. So a lot of astronomy was also closely related to, religious theology and all that business.
Yeah, and I think at the time people were really into planets and how that fit into religion because there was a lot of writings at the time of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are God-fearing 69ing moonbat people.
I don't know if they quite feared God yet. And again, I'll get into all of this.
Okay. Go continue.
Okay. 69ing bat people, that's day 4. That was the big...
Trying not to disrupt.
It's okay. I'm disrupting myself. That was the main event of day 4. So then day 5, this is when it gets really crazy and weird.
Oh.
So by this point, Locke seemed to run out of ideas, and he starts to go full on occult.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm here.
On day 5, they discover the Sapphire Temple, which is a giant 70-foot monument with a roof constructed out of a yellow metal and fashioned to look like the mass of flames rising upwards and licking at a large sphere of clouded copper. And
cool.
Look, I know I always say this as my punchline, but legitimately, literally, without joking, this thing looks like a monument to like the Twin Towers being on fire, but like one of them. So I'm going to text you the image so you can see it. I would have said this it literally just looks like a tower that's on fire.
I can't believe the moon. I can't believe the moon also had 9/11. Oh, wow.
It totally had 9, right? It's lunar 9/11.
That's lunar 9/11.
Yes.
How dare they? How dare they? Look at that.
You know what that means in our lore?
What? Billy Bob was on the moon?
No, Peter Stump. Peter Stump was the one who did 9/11. Remember? Peter Stump, the werewolf, who famously was blamed for everything. He visited the moon at some point.
Since he's immortal, he was there. He burned down the one tower. Or maybe there was 2 and he burned the other one down. I don't know. All I know is that I stand firmly against the terrorist who took down, who were behind lunar 9/11. All right? That's my
Osama bin
running
Lunar.
on.
I don't know.
Osama
the
bin
wealthy
Lunar?
Bin Laden moon family.
Oh, at it again.
So yeah, that was a thing that they just saw, and they went full on like History Channel, and they're like, was there an alien apocalypse? Are there moon Mayans? Did like Lunarian George Bush do 9/11? We don't know. He's just like asking all these questions because that's what they're always doing, right? I'm just asking questions.
I'm just asking questions.
Just asking questions. I don't understand what this 9/11 thing was. There's that. And then on the final day, which is day 6, this is where it all takes it over the edge. Last chapter.
Oh, this is where, yeah?
This is where he brings it all together.
Okay.
Like a good storyteller does. Last chapter, he's like, oh, I wonder, because the day before you saw the temple, and then the last day he's like, I wonder who built this temple. I don't know. Like, there's all these mysteries. Like, the beavers were, they have fire, but it doesn't look like they knew how to build the Twin Towers. And then like the 69ing bat people were probably too busy 69ing to build anything. They're like, this doesn't add up. There must be something else. And then this is my favorite. He literally just like takes the telescope and goes over like 3 feet. And he's like, oh, okay, I guess, whoop, shit. Like a half mile over, there's more bat people.
Oh,
yeah.
Yay. What were they doing?
But these bat people were different.
Oh. Uh-oh.
Yep.
Oh, no.
Get ready. And I quote.
Oh, no. Okay.
You know where it's going.
100% I know where this is going.
Quote, we found that nearly all the individuals in these groups were of larger stature than the former specimens, less dark in color, and in every respect, an improved variety of the race. Yep.
There it is.
We all knew where this was going. Bingo.
Why was this so hard for people to be like they even like projected this onto the moon? They're like, there's no way that those moon people could have built that. We gotta find some white moon people that are better at building.
White moon people are the ones who did this.
Oh no. Every story that we tell from this time period always ends up with as this.
And then racism. As opposed to now where it's totally gone and fixed.
Yeah, it's all gone.
It's all gone. But I'll unpack this. I'll go into more of this just to finish out the story. Then he goes on to talk about, and this is real, how classy they all were and how they possessed the most beautiful of all the quadrupeds, a flat white stag with lofty spreading antlers, black as ebony, and then they rode them. So basically they're also into horses, which, as we all know, somebody like him would love.
Yeah.
So they're like, cool, they built buildings and have white horses. They're awesome. And then he goes on to tell the story of how cool it was to see them. And then that night, this is my favorite part, they were putting the telescope away like usual, but someone placed it weird. And the next morning, the sunlight shined into it and caused a fire. And everybody was like, oh shit, no. And then they stopped the fire and they fixed it. But they're like, yeah, whatever. Okay, you're just gonna have to wait for Herschel's book anyway, since we've given away enough. And then that becomes the end of the day 6 of the story.
Wow.
The end.
So they were like, sorry, we have no proof. We burned it down. Is that what that was about?
No. They're basically saying like we had to stop looking through. Basically, he was like, he's like this. We had to take a break after this and like regroup and build. And then we had to, whatever. He's like, but it's fine. He's like, there's, again, just like the priests are going to come validate all the stuff that we saw. There's going to be a proper book that Herschel will explain everything. This is just like a sneak preview.
And just to remind everyone, he is writing these into the newspaper, correct?
Yeah, so in the New York Sun, he's doing it as 5 or 6 installments over the course of 6 days.
Day by day. Okay.
Yeah, day by day. And so right off the bat, waiting for the applause to come in, but anyway, pun intended. The story, Bat People.
Oh! I'm ashamed of myself.
It's okay. No need for shame.
A lot goes over my head.
The story was huge right off the bat. People were like obsessed. And I couldn't totally confirm this. And I can't remember if I said this last week or not, but I'll just reiterate it. But the Sun was the first paper to employ newsies. Did we talk about this last time?
I don't know.
But anyway, okay. So the whole like extra, read all about it, so on and so forth. Like kids on the corner, like selling newspapers. Apparently the Sun was the first paper to do this.
Oh. So you got Christian Bale out there being like, man on the moon,
dancing
Batman.
Around. Yeah. Batman, we need to unionize.
Wait. I just made some connections in my head that don't make any sense. Go on.
Yeah. All these Bat People, their parents got murdered when they were in a dark alleyway after they went to the opera and they became billionaires and started to protect the city of Moon Gotham from everything. Anyway, I'm just rambling.
Yeah.
But I thought that was really interesting. So they're the first ones to push, marketing to that extent where it's literally on the street corner and people are buying papers and being like, what? And then they take it from the kid and read it and blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
So the combination of the Sun's high circulation and the newsies meant that everyone throughout the city, spanning all social classes, heard about the lunar discoveries at the same time. And they experienced it as a shared social event in a way that was entirely new. And this is probably, at least in this country, the first time that something went viral, like in a city.
Whoa. Okay.
Which is crazy to think about.
That makes sense.
You don't think about it now in terms of, the internet and like everything's so bifurcated and whatever. It's so many different avenues and echo chambers that you're at. But like everybody was reading about it. Everybody was talking about it.
Monoculture.
And again, also,
one event.
Monoculture. And then also like it's the beginning of the penny press. And also it's these articles that are being written. People were like, yeah, I don't know. It's just like this paper. I just read this thing and it was cool. Like there's some real articles in here, but there's also some other stuff. And it kind of reaffirms this thing I want to believe. So everyone's like, yeah, hell yeah, this is awesome. So people got like really riled up about it. They were like, yeah, this is awesome. There's moon people. Did you hear? And at the time,
bang each other.
Yeah, that's true. All the 69 and Bat People.
I'm still hung up on the fact that they're just up there. Anyway, go on.
What else are you supposed to do on the moon?
I mean, build a tower to burn down. I don't know.
That's true.
Obviously building towers. And like,
what do you do at the end of building a tower? You got to relax.
Yeah, that's true.
The Sun made false claims that their sales had like essentially doubled. But this seems unlikely. And because this is true, because after the first couple of entries, a bunch of other papers in New York got wind of its popularity and started to collect and reprint them in a recap. So, those like terrible videos of people where they're like, oh, I'm watching someone else's video and reacting to it. They are doing the 1835 equivalent of that.
We've always done this.
Yes, we've always done this. And this was the first version of that. Or like when someone would RT a thread on Twitter where they're like, read this thread. And then they have their comment. This is what all the other papers were doing day by day. And so it kept spreading further and further. And within a week, close to 100,000 copies of the lunar narrative had been printed at a time when New York City had only a population of 300,000. So that means a third of the city of New York had gotten a copy of this story. Like wildfire,
insane.
This shit's spreading. Yeah.
Like every adult. That's what that
Every
like.
adult has read it. And the Sun surely had lost money from what they did, but they did make a large profit by selling the complete text of the lunar discoveries as a special edition pamphlet that he put on sale on August 31st. So basically like a comic book omnibus, you know, where they collect all the stories into one thing. They essentially did that. And it also sold various lithographic prints showing fanciful scenes of Herschel's lunar discovery, such as the lunar animals in the Ruby Coliseum. And they commissioned the production of these prints from the Wall Street lithographers Norris and Baker, which I couldn't find much information about, but I just thought shout out to artists who are doing other art stuff.
Credit the artist.
So there's all kinds of random stuff. And again, I'll go into it more in terms of like its spread. But there is a lot of cool, crazy artwork about this. So let me see. This one, I think, is from the lithograph. There's this one. And it keeps going, by the way.
Whoa. Oh, wow. Oh, my.
And there's some beautiful pieces.
Yeah.
Which for whoever's reading the YouTube, who's watching the YouTube, you'll see all these on the screen.
Oh, cool. Look at those. Dude, oh, whoa. They're flying and ew.
Yeah, why don't you describe it to people who are listening?
These bat people are like flying around and their legs are, I don't know. I don't like what they look like. They make me uncomfortable.
Did you think bat people were supposed to feel less weird?
Less bat-like, but
less bat-like.
But yeah, there's this dude. Is that a dude? I don't know. Wow, they're flying around. Look, they're talking to each other. They're like conversing on the beach. They're sitting there telling each other stories. They're swimming. There's a bunch of birds.
Oh, I grabbed this one for you. This one's allegedly done by a Welsh artist. Is the last one I saw.
Oh, it's a bat baby. Oh, there's the beaver people. Ooh.
Yeah. So there's the beaver people. Yeah, go ahead.
Those beavers look like werewolves.
They do look like werewolves, which again, Peter Stump, werewolf, went to the moon.
That's what I'm saying.
He might have been responsible. There might be Peter Wolf genetics here somewhere at play.
I mean, these are gorgeous.
I'm sorry, Peter Stump, not Peter Wolf.
These are really, really, really pretty illustrations. I like them a lot.
They're really cool. Let's see.
Because here's what's blowing my mind right now is that, like, you see this kind of style and you're like, oh, yeah, that's like from the 1800s. And you expect it to be like, oh, here's a politician or here's like a scene of like country life. But instead, it's these people that are covered in hair and have wings. They're just doing regular people stuff, except they're bat people and it's on the moon.
It's awesome.
It's like this weird, like, juxtaposition for me that's like blowing my mind a little bit. It's like,
I knew you'd love it.
I do. I want a tattoo of one of these bat people.
Anyway, so let's see. So there's some debate about the validity, essentially, amongst the public, but most people were like fully into it.
Really?
And yeah. So
wow.
This is where it gets kind of tough to figure out like what exactly is what and how much of this is true and how much of this is. So there's like a big. God, what was the website? The website I was looking at was hoaxes.org that did a really good, really long deep dive into this. And they sort of unpack each part like one by one in terms of, you know, accounts that were written at the time, accounts that were written like 15 years later. And then there's sort of the different incentives that people might have had to take a certain tone. Yeah. I won't go into all of it because it gets really long and complicated. But essentially, some people are saying that like, it's overblown and that like the people who were refuting it there was more of a refuting in the public space, but people just didn't care. Other people were saying that like, no, everybody was into it and no one said anything. Anyway, it's very complicated, but long story short,
the same as us today, where like a lot of people, you know, it was complicated. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what I think is so interesting about the story is that it has a lot of parallels to today. But so there are a few funny stories, which is missionaries started to raise money to go to the moon and convert the heathens.
Of course. The first thing they do is try to make them Christian.
Yep.
Oh.
Apparently some priest or something was like getting Bibles sent to him and people were like, can you send this to the moon to go to them as well?
Oh, insane.
But it wasn't just the religious people. Yale was alive with staunch supporters. Students, professors, doctors in divinity and law, and all the rest of the reading community looked daily for the arrival of the New York Mail with excitement and implicit faith.
Like academics.
And again, because remember, it's written in this awful, disgusting, I want to rip my teeth out of my mouth style. That is the worst.
It's so awful. That it's just like it's word salad again.
Terrible.
Word salad.
And I can say this as a person who has gone through the higher education system. Oh, they will eat this shit up. This is exactly how you write like a 25-page paper. Ugh. the more obnoxious it is, and like, oh, they referenced like the teacher who teaches the class. I literally got dock points on papers that I wrote because I didn't reference the teacher themselves. I was like, eat shit. I hate all of you. Anyway, that's another complaint for another time. But yes, I could totally see all the snobs of Yale in 1835 being like, oh, how interesting. Blah, 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 blah.
All these big words must mean there's people on the moon.
Basically, they're all dumb and they don't know what it is, but they're like, well, it's bigger words than I would use, so he's probably got to be telling the truth. And so it divided a lot of people, though. So like people were getting into fist fights at Thanksgiving about it.
What?
This was the first, not literally.
Real. Yeah. Oh, man, I wanted to hear about that.
I can't prove that it didn't happen.
Their weird uncle comes and he's like, did you hear about the moon people? And you get in a huge argument with them at Thanksgiving.
The moon people did 9/11. But this is sort of the first real media hoax and like a big lie, like the big lie that we're dealing with right now. This is the first instance of that.
That's wild.
Yeah. And by the end of September, news of the lunar discoveries had reached Europe. And one guy writes, William Griggs' his name, he described the reaction of European newspapers saying, quote, whether they were hoaxed themselves or not, they too well knew the value of the narrative as matters of interest to their readers to expose its American origin, even if they were really apprised of it. So in New York, there was a raging debate about this. But then as you get out of New York, people are kind of like, what the hell is this shit? And then by the time it gets to Europe, basically they knew that their readers would get a huge kick out of how stupid and gullible everybody in America was. Funny. And they were like, awesome, cool, we're going to just publish this paper because you can laugh at like those dumb hick Yankees, and they just made money off of it.
That's genius. It's like, look how stupid they are.
Yeah, so it keeps spreading. So it goes like to England and then it goes throughout Europe. It's really eerie when you keep reading about what people's motivations were and the role of the penny papers, because the standards are quote unquote different from now. I don't know, but
but we'll see.
The role of the penny papers and their journalistic integrity and the advertising models that they had taken on and the way they described it over and over, they kept saying their stance was, it's all up to the readers to decide. Is what they all kept saying over and over. They're like, it's not our job to tell them whether this is real or not. It's just up to you.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Oh, that sounds a lot like right now.
Yeah. Essentially, this is...
Do your own research.
Do your own research. Where? I don't know. I don't know where I'm supposed to go to like the library and read about like bat people 69ing on the moon, if that's real.
Yeah.
Fact check. There's no...
Look, listen,
I watched a YouTube video of a guy in a truck screaming about the moon bat people, so I know it's real.
I believe him.
Yeah, it's not good. And newspapers at that time, particularly the penny press. So, okay, let me explain this part. So some argue that Day is the guy who owned the Sun.
Yes.
Some argued that he printed the moon hoax in order to embarrass the 6-cent papers, which were like the more highbrow ones that had advertising and stuff.
Oh, interesting.
Hoping that they may try to steal the scoop by reprinting the story without crediting him.
That got away from him. That didn't work, if that's the case.
No, as it turned out, none of the 6-cent papers took the bait, and they just reprinted the story, and they gave all the credit to the Sun. They were smart. They were like, I don't know, this is what this paper is saying.
Here, buy our paper so you can see what this paper is saying.
Yeah.
Wow.
But... nevertheless, the hoax did dramatize the difference between the conservative 6-cent papers and the more rambunctious penny papers, casting the penny papers as like entertaining and salacious and sharp-witted than their rival. So one was sort of like for the people versus like for the elites, so to speak.
Oh, yeah. And whether you believe it or not, I mean, I would be way more on board with the penny papers because I'm classist against the rich.
But also, it's like they're giving you the thing that's fun, and they're giving you the thing that's interesting, and they're giving you the thing that's insane. They're not giving you like this dry, fact-checked.
Right. Academically supported like paper. No.
Yeah.
Moon people.
Moon people, yeah. What am I going to do? Not read about moon people?
Right.
And for this reason, the hoax proved to be a smart business move on Day's part. But of course, rival newspapers and people who weren't huffing paint were like, are you people insane? This is clearly a lie.
So 6 people in America that weren't huffing some sort of chemical. Yeah.
And they were like, and then of course everyone got mad at those people, and they were like,
of course,
how much is Soros paying you? Like, you're on the payroll, like you're part of this, blah, blah, blah. All the same bullshit we deal with today.
This is crazy. This is exactly what happens now.
Yeah. And people were like, they just didn't want to believe it.
Yeah. We just don't change. We don't change. We don't change. That's so scary. That's so scary.
Eventually, someone pieced together that Locke was the writer of this. And they kind of started hassling him about it. And he had to sort of like issue a non-denial denial.
What?
Because he's caught in this weird position where he's like, he wrote this thing that his boss, Benjamin Day, who owns the Sun, is just making money like hand over fist. So if he comes out and he's like, oh, yeah, I made this up. Yeah. But if he's like, it's all perpetuated by the idea that no one can prove that they don't know if it's real or fake. So if he comes out and he's like, yeah, I made it up, all of a sudden no one's making money. So he's sort of just like, I don't know. Like, he sort of gives like a non-answer. He can't let the cat out of the bag. So he's sort of to the day he dies, he doesn't really officially ever go on the record to properly say it. But like, there's all these like different hearsay stories of him here or there saying it. Like at a bar, or like skirting around it, but I don't think there's ever like an official proper like on the record way of saying to proof. But it's basically like, this guy's from England. He had just gotten hired like a couple of months before. He's the only person that would have been educated enough to work at that newspaper who would have written something like this, and he was a known, he was known for being like kind of anti-religious, like not into the whole astronomy thing. So everyone's like, yeah, clearly this is the guy. But again,
who else would it be?
Yeah, who else would it be? Like. An important thing to remember here in terms of the context is that there was a lot of civil unrest at that time, especially in New York.
Yeah.
Because, Jonathan the Tortoise was writing op-eds about how everybody should stand by and do nothing during slavery, if you remember correctly.
Jonathan the Tortoise was born in this year, so don't you dare. Don't you dare.
Oh, my bad.
He did do nothing about slavery, but later.
He could have written a paper when he was born. I don't know how quickly giant tortoise, develop their brains and to be able to write like a op-ed.
Jonathan has been silent for too long.
Anyway. At this point, he's not saying anything. But people are writing op-eds. And even at that time, that was a controversial take. And it really dominated the news cycle. And the general population, they were like, I'm tired of all these protests. They're disrupting my day-to-day. Like, sure, I guess slavery is bad, but all this private property, like, that's what we're talking about here. You can't. Like, you have to... I know you want to protest, and I respect that, but, like, you can't protest because that affects me.
Do it nicer.
do it nicer in a way that doesn't disrupt anything. Basically, everyone's an idiot still.
Go over there and be quiet about it. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Go into the protest zone that doesn't disrupt anything. That's what we want it to do. So it never ends.
The worst. And then later just be like, I was always on that side.
Yeah. Oh, no, classic. I was on the right side of history.
Yeah, classic.
So people were super excited to indulge in something that was totally delusional, which is ironic because it was basically a story about like how like racial hierarchy was prevalent somewhere else in the universe.
It was just supporting what they wanted to believe. They're like, see, it's not just us, it's the moon people. They're right. I'm right. Sorry, go on. Yeah. This is so funny.
It's so insane, right? And remember, people in New York, and then again, just a little bit of context, like you can get into a discussion about this. People were like, they weren't into slavery at this time. Like the people in New York or the North, they were like against slavery, but it's not like they were like, oh yeah, black people are people, like thumbs up, like let's give them jobs. They wanted
them to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not as simple as being like, well, they were on the northern, and like there is bullshit happening like every which way.
Oh yeah. Even Lincoln was like, let's make a new country for them called Liberia.
Yeah. So there's interesting readings of the moon hoax in different ways. So there's a guy named Kevin Young who wrote about an article for the New Yorker that I read, which is very New Yorker-y, which means it's like, again, overly flowery language and just sort of like, that's their audience. They love it. But I thought that was a good read. It was interesting because he's a black author. So it's not something I saw very common amongst all the different, I guess there's books about it, but just not a lot of articles about it. But I thought that was a worthwhile take to read about it. He's just kind of like, yeah, this is questionable, right? And to me, this is the part of it that becomes interesting because obviously it was written as this, satire, but how much of it is, and then it sort of brings into question, like how effective can it, how can a satire be effective if it's like too good and people believe it? and they run into it, is it, does that become something else? So does that mean it's like a failure of a satire? Also, there's no way of knowing exactly like how much of this was Locke. I mean, like maybe he had his own bias and he was writing that shit into it. And like, I don't know. It's all sort of, you won't know without ever.
Get away from him. Like he just wanted to see how far he could go. And then it just reflected the views of the time where he, you know, I mean, it's hot. Yeah. Was he doing a commentary? Was he trying to write a satire? Was he trying to point something out?
Right. And his whole thing was like, by Locke's own admission, is that he was very like anti-religious. Or not anti-religious. I think he was like against the way that religion had been infiltrated into the sciences and into astronomy. So I mean, the religious aspect of it might have been part of that, because that's also part of like whatever the really crazy like conservative religious people would have been at that time. So I don't know, honestly. Like there's no clear answer. It's also hard to guess if maybe we're projecting our own contemporary beliefs about like what we would want this person to have been writing about. Like, they're skewering all this stuff. I don't know, honestly. Like there's no clear answer about it, but I think it's an interesting way. There's a lot of different ways to read it. I just think it's worth reading all the different ones because it's kind of cool and interesting to see.
Well, yeah, I think it's good to like look at it through the lens of, you know, history, where even if he was being satirical, he probably still held extremely racist views. And there's, I mean, through the lens of race, it's fascinating. It's like,
I think so.
It's almost like people, like, you know, you see it reflected in the movies we make and watch. It's like the us trying to work through biases through art. It's just fascinating that like it was almost like reflecting our own society onto the moon, and then like trying to figure it out, you know? Yeah.
I'll link that story in the show notes.
Yeah, I want to read that.
It's worth a read too.
That's wild.
Again, it's really it's such a fascinating, like the story itself is insane, like the context of it's insane, like the story, like the events that happened from it and the interpretations. I loved it. I thought this was such a crazy, insane thing. But we're nearing the end. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Oh no, I just love this. I'm excited to read more. Like this is one of those tabs you do where I'm like, okay, let's hang up so I can go and read more about this.
There's a lot to unpack. Anyway. So everybody had a take. Everybody had something interesting to say about it. But our friend Eddie Allie Poe.
Oh, Eddie. Sorry, that joke flopped.
It's not a good joke. It's okay.
It wasn't. What did he have to say about it?
Edgar Allan Poe suspected his own story idea had been stolen and reworked for The Sun, and he was pissed.
Oh, right.
Everybody forgot his story,
and
so he got even. Much like Kendrick, he wrote a diss track called The Great Balloon Hoax.
Love that. I love Kendrick's that song by Kendrick. Yeah. The Great Balloon Hoax.
The Great Balloon. He basically wrote his response diss track. And then
that's funny.
Drake cried. Poe's original story about Hans Pfaall is considered an influential early example of science fiction. And allegedly, Jules Verne was a fan of both Hans Pfaall and the balloon hoax, and they inspired him to write From the Earth to the Moon and Around the World in 80 Days.
Whoa. Yeah, I was going to say, this is really early for like sci-fi stuff. That's what's kind of crazy to me. Like, I thought sci-fi kind of came around in like the 30s and 40s, but this was a whole 100 years before that.
Yeah. This is sort of the prototypical thing, and it also tapped into the popular imagination. All kinds of stuff comes from this. But lastly, Herschel, the guy who was allegedly in the story.
What did he do about all of this?
So apparently, at first, like a few months later, someone went to South Africa to go work with him on the telescope, and they brought the story. And they gave it to him, and he kind of just read it and was like, LOL, where is this going to go? Like, he thought it was like cheeky and funny and just sort of like got a kick out of it and was like, ha 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 ha. He didn't really like care.
He didn't care. That's the best.
He just thought it was funny.
She was like, initially.
But then like a couple of years later, he just apparently got sick of it because he was like, people keep asking me about this and it didn't even happen.
Okay.
So he wrote some formal letter to be like, can you please just denounce this as being fake? Because I am sick and tired of having to tell everybody that this is not a thing, that I was not a part of this. And like, it was cheeky and fun at first, but now it's just on my nerves.
Wow. That is so funny. I love that he's like, oh, ha ha ha. And then completely loses his mind about it. Because that's so relatable.
Mm-hmm.
I've never done that with anything I've ever created.
Never. Anyway, let me see. Okay, let me see. What else did I send you? Okay, so there's a couple more pieces I want to send you.
Let's see.
So some of these go to like Italy, for example. There's like an Italian edition where they do all these lithographs and crazy drawings.
Whoa, this one's in color. Whoa.
Again,
I think all these bat people have gigantic, luxurious beards.
They do.
There's the flap. There's the flap on the thing's head. The unicorn head.
Here's this one. Why don't you, again, describe it to the audience who can't see.
So this looks like... Okay, wait. What is going on? Are we on Earth or the moon? Oh, we're on the moon.
This is all on the moon.
Oh. Uh-oh. Are these people tying the... It looks like a bunch of Earthlings are now on the moon.
Yeah, I think they're thinking about like missionaries coming to the moon or something. I'm not quite sure what this was. This one's a little bit unhinged.
This one's insane because there's a bunch of... Oh, no. Look down in the bottom left at the tree. Mm-hmm. There's these two bat people being tied to the tree by their necks.
Oh, that's not good. I didn't notice that.
No, that's not good at all.
Oh, no, we don't like that.
They're enslaving the moon people.
They're enslaving the moon people.
Oh, shoot. Oh, they're also... Yeah, this is pretty much just a bunch of like Earthlings exploiting the moon and enslaving their people. So, nothing changed.
Par for the course.
Oh, look, these two moon people are flying away with a lady. They've kidnapped her, and everyone's like, hey, bring her back. Wow.
This one's fun. It's a drawing of Newsy. It just says extra, and it's a giant bat person on the cover, and it's this little tiny
this
child.
This is awesome. Oh, you know what this kind of reminds me of? Remember Bat Boy from the... Was it Bat Boy?
From the National Enquirer.
Enquirer, yeah. This is like Bat Boy in the 1830s. This one of the Newsy holding the paper is my favorite so far. Oh, there's another
it's a good drawing.
Oh, they're fighting. They're beating a unicorn up in this one. Oh, I'm uncomfortable. The way these guys
it's
are portrayed.
very problematic. Yeah, it's again
not good.
Full warning of to everybody that like it's not. But again, that's what we're trying to unpack here is like, the art style is great. It's really interesting to look at the art, but then you sort of unpack it and you're like, oh, this is not great.
Why'd they make these choices?
Yep.
Wow. There's my wow again. Wow.
Wow. Anyway.
Dude, this has been one of my favorite ones you've done.
That's my tab. That is awesome. The Great Moon Hoax. I will link to the New Yorker article and also to the hoaxes.org. Both are really interesting resources. There's plenty of crazy stuff to read about it. But it's like the first
so good
mass media viral event that has to do with all kinds of weird shit. Anyway, that's my tab. Hello, friends. Would you like to help Hannah and I? All you have to do is go to nebula.tv/500opentabs and sign up for Nebula, where they have exclusives like David Lean Queer Subtext by Maggie Mayfish. In this video, Maggie explores the work of David Lean, who wasn't gay himself, but wove queer themes throughout his filmography. From his early work with the gay writer Noel Coward on Brief Encounter, to the homoerotic subtext of Lawrence of Arabia, Lean's films offer rich subtext and sometimes explored some progressive ideas that were unexpected for the time. I myself am a huge fan of Lean's work, particularly Lawrence of Arabia, which I consider what you kids today would call one of the GOATs, despite it being a film filled with camels. Unless camel is a cool young person acronym that I am unaware of. Cool, absolutely, miraculously, extremely, legit? I don't know. I guess it's time for me to sign up for my AARP card. You can find this video and dozens of other high production originals on Nebula, a video streaming platform built by and for creators. And of course, I'm contractually obligated to tell you that subscribers get a special feed to listen to this show ad-free. Go to nebula.tv/500opentabs and get 40% off an annual subscription. By signing up, you can support other creators like Lindsay Ellis, Princess Weeks, and many more. Remember, sign up at nebula.tv/500opentabs and help us become the camels of the podcast world.
Thank you for that tab. That was like right up my alley, my favorite kind of stuff. 1800s, sci-fi, moon people. You ready for something different?
Yep. That's why we have a podcast.
Oh, what? That's why? All right, so it's just I had something else planned for today a couple weeks ago, and then I went to London. as you know.
Yes.
I went to London for London Comic Con, and I had already prepped myself like, okay, when you're gonna go there, but you're not gonna go there for fun. You can't go looking around. You can't go, that was immediately thrown out the window once I got there because I was like, I'm here. Because
Why would you not go there to have fun?
No, no. I went there to have fun, but like, here's how I travel. I go somewhere and I'm like, I have to fill every second of the day because I don't know when I'm coming back.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, and so I had a hard time being like letting go of like, okay, what's around me, So I decided to screw that, and so I started looking at the map and being like, well, what is around me? Because I was staying in East London. I'd never been to that area before, and so I opened my map and I'm like, let's just look around, Okay. And I spot something that says Sainsbury Plague Pit. And I was like, hell yes.
Yes. Go on.
This is, now you're speaking my language. And I was
Sainsbury Plague Pit.
Plague Pit. And so, of course, I find myself getting onto a train and traveling.
Hell yeah, the story keeps getting better. Trains, love it.
Yo, I love trains.
I know you do. I love trains too.
I love them. They're so good. Okay.
I hate that we don't have more here.
Every time I come back from abroad, I'm like, what is wrong with us?
Thoroughly disappointing.
So many cars. I hate that. Okay, anyway.
Me too.
I'm trying not to use the word hate because my daughter corrects me now. She's like, you can't say hate. And I'm like... This
is a fully pro-train podcast, just so everybody knows.
My dad used to have a bumper sticker on his car that said, cars are coffins. And it was like...
That's where you get it from.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because he was like, we should all be on bikes or trains. Cars or coffins. And he had on his car. Anyway, I experienced in real time what my browser would experience with me opening tabs. So I find myself on a train, looking around. I'm like, oh, I haven't seen that flower before. What is it? Let's take a picture of it. Let's look it up. Oh, what's that? Why is this called Canning Town? Let's look it up. Oh, because they used to can things here. Anyway, so I was just on this train and I
thought you were going to say, I experienced in real life what my browser would have experienced, which is immediately crashing.
Oh, I crashed. Ready? Okay, so I'm on this train and I get out and I walk to this plague pit and I'm like, I don't know what to expect. And I get there and of course it's just a cemetery and I'm staring at a cemetery. And I was like, so there's where all the plague people are buried, And it was a cemetery. It was closed. I couldn't go in it. So I was like, should I hop the fence? Right. And I was like, no, I'm not 22. It's like the last time I hopped a fence to England, I got stuck in a castle courtyard and didn't work. Oh. And then before that, I've been stuck in a cemetery before, and I don't want to do that again. So I was like, I can't hop the fence. I'm not 22. This is an insane thing. Just because I'm here doesn't mean I have to be on it. So I just stared at the plague pit, and all it was some grass. And then I looked it up, and I was like, are there more plague pits? I realized that London is full of plague pits, which is just code for burial grounds or like mass graves that they needed because people kept dying. So I was like, I need to work. I need to go sit at my booth and work and not think about plague pits.
What are you talking about? That is work. That's the beauty of us doing this show, is that you going to all the plague pits is fodder for the podcast.
So if you think this tab's about plague pits, I am so sorry because it's not.
Okay. Oh, bummer.
This is just No, it kind of. I'll get to... So I'm looking at this plague pit and I go back to the hotel and I'm like, there's so many more plague pits. So tomorrow, after I'm done, I'm going to go to central London and I'm going to go look at some of the other plague pits that are on here. Okay, so 7:00 rolls around and I'm like, plague pits. So I go sit on the ground outside the convention center and I start, looking it up and I'm like, how do I get there? Which ones do I go to? What?
Sorry. I've done so many conventions with you, so I just know you're sitting there drawing your crap, being like, plague pit, 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 plague pit. Like,
that's all I can
you're
think
just repeating it to yourself over and over for 10 hours, and you're just getting hyper, like, plague pit, plague pit,
plague pit, plague pit. They have to like hold me back as it gets closer to 7, and I'm like going nuts. And so like I even met like wonderful artists that I could be talking about right now, but I'm not going to. Shout out. You guys know who you are. Sorry I'm so mean about your country. I really love it. Okay, so I'm sitting out there and I'm like, there's nowhere to sit. So I'm like sitting there looking up where to go. And I get so wrapped up in it because I notice one of the houses that Stephen Ray Morris talked about. one of the fake houses. And I was like, well, there's no way I can't see that too. So I was like, what plague pits are near Bayswater? And so I started constructing this map. Before I knew it, it was 8 p.m. And I was still sitting outside researching plague pits. And the sun was going down. And I was like, you know what? I'm still going to do it just in the dark. And so in the dark. I decided to go. Well, it didn't get dark till like 10 p.m. there because they're so close to the like crazy. Anyway, I sound like a madman, but whatever. I'm leaning into it. So I decided to go back to my hotel. I'm like, I'll eat there and then I'll take the train to the plague pits. I go down a pathway. It turns out that pathway is closed. I walked half a mile for no reason. It like crushed my spirit. I was like distracted by geese. And there was like this photo shoot with this anime character. And I was staring at geese and I walked through the photo shoot. And then I saw this cool building across the river. And I was like, that's cool. Where's that from? 1935. I looked it up. Couldn't get through to the hotel. I had to walk a whole half a mile back and my spirits were broken. And it was like 9:30. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to the plague pits today. So finally, I'm done working. The next day, I'm like, this is it. I'm going there. And, it wasn't until Sunday evening. So I was at I did the whole convention because I went out to eat with some artist friends, whatever. Networked, important stuff. So I finally got out and I was like, okay, I'm going to go to this one plague pit. It's called Christchurch Gardens and it's down near a train station in central London by Westminster Abbey.
Trains and plagues.
I'm not going to go anywhere else. We're just going to this one. And I felt good because I was burdened with all of my tabs. Oh, we're almost there. We're almost to the point.
You're like Sisyphus carrying these tabs around as you're trying to go to the plague pit at the top of the mountain.
I opened 16 tabs on plague pits. Trying to figure out which ones to go to. Anyway, I'm almost there. Bear with me. I don't want to lose you, please.
I'm still here. I'm on the edge of my seat.
Okay, I find one and I'm like, I'll go to that one because I wanted to go to Westminster Abbey because I like that place. It's pretty. So I went and looked at Westminster Abbey and then I'm like, oh, here's the plague pit and it's just a patch of grass and it's like a park now. It's called Christchurch Gardens and it was named after a church that used to be there but that was like obliterated during the Blitz. And so now they just turned it into a park, but the bodies are still there. They got rid of the gravestones, but they didn't get rid of the bodies. So this plague pit was an overflow cemetery from St. Margaret's Church nearby. Okay. And they needed to make a bigger cemetery because in 1665, everyone was dying from the plague. And they had to bury everybody. So, patch of grass, I started walking around it, and I'm like, oh, there's a bunch of people buried here. There's a plaque that's like, this is a plague pit. And here's where we get to the tab, all right? It's not about plague pits because it turns out plague pits are really sad. And so I'm walking around this cemetery park and I look at this plaque and I see something that says Colonel Thomas Blood. And I'm like, who's Thomas Blood?
That's a hell of a name.
This is a hell of a guy. And
hey, so I'm Tom Blood.
I'm Tommy Blood and I'm here to tell you.
Tommy Blood.
So I was who's Thomas Blood?
I'm Billy Cripp. What do you think about that?
Oh, no. That's
ancient
true.
rivalry in England. Yeah.
That's where it originated. Anyway, Thomas Blood. It said, this guy's also buried next to the plague pit. And I was like, oh, no. So I opened a tab on him. And now I'm going to tell you about the jewel thief, Thomas Blood.
Yes.
He is the first
greenlit.
And the only... No, just wait. You're going to greenlit this so much. So he was the only...
The name and the occupation immediately. Right? I don't need to hear anything else.
Thomas Blood is insane. So he was a guy. He was born in 1618 in Ireland. His dad was English. His mom was Irish. And he was firmly on the side of the king. So that the rest of Ireland was like, boo. And...
That's right. Listen, Jonathan also didn't speak out against slavery initially, so maybe, and he had a chance to redeem himself.
He did. This guy, we'll see. He'll redeem. Anyway, so
I'm going into it with an open mind.
Okay, so someday I'll do more things on plague pits, but Thomas Blood took over my entire. That's how I got here. Okay. Oh, and I never went to that house that Stephen showed us. Anyway.
This is what it's like, by the way, to hang out with Hannah for 10 hours a day.
This is what it's like?
It's wonderful.
Oh, I immediately took that as a bad thing.
No, I'm just like, this is how I end up getting through all conventions because you're just like out of your mind at some point. We take turns.
You do take turns. And then you know
we
what?
We take turns going out of your mind.
A tornado.
Yeah, it does.
We're a tornado, the two of us.
And bother everyone around us.
Neither one of us knows how to stop. So it just fizzles out. Like either I start crying or you're like,
or I get sent away because I have to go eat something because I haven't eaten in like 10 hours.
Like, go eat because you're like pasty and pale and you're like, I don't feel good. And I'm like, maybe you should eat. So
Tommy Blood.
I'm gonna get through this. Tommy Blood, Irishman. So when he's 24, the English Civil War breaks out, which, to simplify years and years of long, drawn-out, complicated political, religious battles.
Captain Britain's on one side, and Iron Man's on the other one.
Yeah, and they kiss. I don't know. All you have to know is that King Charles I was like, I'd like some more money for war, please. And Parliament was like, no.
Money, please.
Seriously, money, please. And Parliament was like, no. Also, we don't think you should be king. We don't really need a king. And Charles was like, ruh-roh. And then they beheaded him. and they
Take
installed...
that, Chuck.
This is the same Chuck in my Anne Hutchinson story that was like, Puritans suck. And they were like, boo.
Oh, so he got decapitated.
Anyway, he got decapitated. He got arrested by his own people. Anyway, Oliver Cromwell, they installed him as Lord Protector, which was just a different name for a king, pretty much.
Ollie Crom.
And he kind of just like ruined. I mean, if you bring up Oliver Cromwell in Ireland, you can see the fire in them. They still hate him for good reason.
I hate him too. I hate this guy. I don't know his deal, but he sucks.
Side.
Usually I am horrible. Too. Yeah, I'm always on the side.
Yeah. I can get into him later. They hate so he became Lord Protector, and then his son took over after he died. So pretty much just like the king. And everyone was like,
we
this
love
sucks.
That. Yeah.
So they hated him so much that they went back to a monarchy. So they were like, we're done with this.
Back to a monarchy? It is a monarchy.
They went back to calling it a monarchy.
Calling it a monarchy, right? Rebranded, I believe, is the term they use right now.
They rebranded. And they hated Oliver Cromwell so much that the royalists dug him up just to hang him again.
I think I've heard about that before. Yes, I do. Or you mentioned that to me. I think you brought up Cromwell before. Yeah.
As he should, So our boy Tommy.
Double hanging. Okay. Tommy Blood.
24. He's like, I'm a royalist and a good Christian. I'm going to go fight for Charles the King. And he goes over to England and he's like, yeah, screw you, Oliver Cromwell.
Before he's decapitated, right?
Before he's decapitated.
Okay.
And then he quickly realizes that Charles is not going to win. And he's like oh. And so he quietly just swaps sides and just walks over to the other side. And he's like, hey, I'm here.
He's all, yeah, screw those guys. Like,
and Oliver Cromwell was like, oh, you're Irish? That's awesome. Okay, we need your help. You can be a lieutenant. He gives him, he makes him a lieutenant. And
Boomer.
Thomas,
he just came up off the street and they were like, you can get paid $50 an hour. You can buy a house for $30 and you get to be a lieutenant. Tommy Blood.
That's so funny that you say that about the house because they made him a lieutenant and then they just gave him land. They're like, here, you joined our side. Here's some land in Ireland and you can be Justice of the Peace. So after the Civil War is over, Tommy and he gets married, has some kids, moves back to Ireland on this land.
Little Bloods.
Little tiny bloods.
Mini bloods, yeah. Blood spots.
Tiny droplets.
Droplets.
I feel insane right now.
It's good. Lean into it.
I'm going to. So he goes back to Ireland. And let's fast forward to 1660. This is like 20-something years later. And they're like, let's bring the king back. This sucks. And so they bring back Charles's son, Charles II, and reinstall him on the throne. And it pisses everyone off.
Yeah, why? Why would you? The first king sucked. Why would you bring his son back?
They hate.
At least get like a different king if you're going to do that.
No. That would be worse because then there'd be a whole a war for the throne. So the easiest thing to do is bring back the rightful claimant, or else you're going to get more sides being like, well, no, we got to fight for this guy. It's
so stupid.
It goes, I wish I could talk more about this, but I wouldn't stop talking. So through all of that, they bring the king's son. And remember how Oliver Cromwell
Chuck
gave
the
land?
Second, right?
Chuck 2.
Chuck 2, the sequel, yeah.
So Oliver Cromwell gave all that land to people.
Yeah.
Charles II is like, we're going to take that land back.
Oh, no.
And it completely bankrupted Thomas Blood. bankrupted him, and he was pissed for, understandable reasons. So here's where Thomas starts his life of insane choices.
Had to take money out of the blood bank. Sorry, I just had to make that terrible joke.
he had to take money out of the blood bank.
Blood bank.
Am I right?
Yeah. So he loses his land.
He loses his land. He's furious. And so he rallies a bunch of other Cromwellian landowners that were, revoked of their land. And he was like, we're going to overthrow the Duke who's in charge of Ireland.
Okay.
So this guy's name is Duke Ormond. He's like a royalist English dude who was put in charge of Ireland to keep them under control.
In check, yeah.
In check. And he lives in Dublin Castle. And so Blood is like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to storm this castle, and we're going to kidnap him, and we're going to kill him.
Nice.
And he gets all these people on board. But then I couldn't find out why, but the night before the attack was supposed to happen, they were caught, and Ormond found out.
Judas!
Something happened, but Blood was like, I'm out of here. And so he like escapes to the Netherlands, and then
the night before?
Yeah, something's fishy.
Oh, maybe he was just like, I'm a spy working for the other side, and I want to get all these people who want to overthrow you arrested. Interesting. Okay.
Well, they were all arrested and executed.
Except for him.
Except for him and a few others. But he then became the most wanted man in England, because they're like, This guy? Okay, and he swears revenge on the Duke of Ormond, because he's like, you killed all my conspirators and friends. I'm going to kill you someday. And so he hangs out in Holland for a little bit, and he's like, I got to get revenge now. Like, Anstey, this guy can't hold still. Like, Thomas is like, okay, I'm bored. So
listen, you got to have a spa day. You got to relax. You can't just go straight into revenge. You got to take some time, focus on you before you go back and try and overthrow the Duke of Dublin.
Go Duke of Dublin. I like that. Duke of Dublin. Duke of Ormond, whatever that means. So he's like, okay, I got to get back to England, because he hears that the Duke has moved back to England. He does not in Ireland anymore. And he's like, here we go. I'm going to go kill this dude. And so he pretends to be a doctor.
Okay.
This dude.
Feeling it.
He takes on the name of Dr. Aleph and begins to practice medicine.
Because you could do that.
You could. He opens a doctor's office and treats people and practices medicine, and he's not a doctor. So
this is like the long con. He's just like, I got to set up like at least 1 or 2 years of practicing medicine so people believe me.
100%. And
interesting.
He spends the next little while pretty much stalking the Duke of Ormond and trying to figure out his patterns, his little things, what he does every day. And he notices that every night he takes a coach ride around his neighborhood in London.
Okay.
So like horse-drawn
clear his head.
Carriage. To clear his head or whatever. I don't know.
Go for a night stuff. He's just like, killing all these Irish people gets really tiring. I need to have
tired.
The wind. Yeah. Ugh.
The English wind.
You don't know the stresses that I have. Yeah.
Of starving out whole families. It's rough. So he takes this like drive around, and so Thomas is like, gets his Cromwellian friends again, and he's like, okay, I found him, and here's what we're gonna do. So they intercept this coach one night, drag him out of his coach, tie him up, put him on horseback, and they start riding to Tyburn, which is no. They start riding to Tyburn, where Tyburn is where they hang people, criminals. So they were like vigilante style, kidnapping this dude, and we're going to execute him. And they pin a piece of paper to him explaining the reason for his capture and why they decided to execute him.
Yeah.
Don't get too excited. So somehow he escapes. So Ormond, I know. Ormond wriggles free, ends up escaping. His servant helps him back, and Thomas Blood is so pissed off.
I would be.
And here's the thing though, his doctor disguise worked perfectly because nobody knew he was in the country. And so when this guy gets kidnapped, this guy's son is like, oh, I think it was this guy, and starts pointing fingers at other people. And threatening
some poor person got arrested and hanged who had nothing to do with
it. A different Duke. He's like, you tried to kill him, and if you ever do that again, I'll shoot you dead. And he was like, anyway. And then meanwhile, Thomas is like, oop, I'm not involved.
Yoink. Yeah.
So Thomas can't stop. He's not going to stop there. he kind of gives up on killing Ormond for now.
Lame.
And he
Quitter.
decides, he decides instead to steal all of the crown jewels from the Tower of London.
Okay, I like it. He's pivoting.
Yeah, he's pivoting. I wish we knew the workings behind his brain, but he decides he's going to steal all the crown jewels. And here's how he does it.
On board, fully.
I'm
Fully on board with this.
So only months later, in April 1671, he starts formulating a plan. And he realizes that the crown jewels can be viewed by anybody if they pay the keeper of the jewels. He decides to dress up as like a vicar, like a church guy, and goes on a tour around the tower with his fake wife. And he has some like female friend, name lost to history, which I would love to know who this was. But she poses as his wife, and they go to the tower, and they're like walking around like, oh yeah, we want to see the jewels. And then she pretends to have a stomach ache, and she's like, oh, I need wine, I need spirits, please help me. The master of the jewels was like, oh yeah, here, come to my house. He has an apartment right above the crown jewels. And he's like this 77-year-old man named Talbot Edwards, and he's put in charge of the jewels. Anyway.
Talbot.
77 was super old for the time. And they're like, yeah. You'll do. You can protect these jewels. The wife, Mrs. Edwards, is like, yeah, come in. You can have some things to help your stomach feel better. And they kind of chat a little bit. And then Thomas Blood has to look around, and he's like, well, okay, here's what this looks like. And then they leave. And he comes back 3 days later to give her, Mrs. Edwards, a gift for taking care of them.
Yeah.
And they start more conversations, and they start to become friends. He starts to befriend. Oh, yeah. He starts to befriend Mr. and Mrs. Edwards to the point where he's like, by the way, I have a nephew who is very eligible for marriage, and you mentioned your daughter needs to marry someone. So you want to marry my nephew? Which I don't know why he did this. This just complicates his plan. Like,
he's thinking long game.
Yeah. So he's
trying to disrupt the bloodline, I guess. Is that the plan? I don't know.
I don't know what he's doing. He's just trying to get in their good graces. So, like, if we can make an alliance and we could become in-laws of sorts, I can really infiltrate your... I kind of think he was just...
Crown jewels. Maybe he just was, like, smitten by their family. He was just... Maybe they were cool. And he was like, actually, listen.
He actually likes them.
Which one of us have not been, like, thinking about family? We're in the middle of something. You're like, listen, I'm trying to steal the crown jewels and assassinate this duke. But it doesn't mean that I'm too busy for love.
And friendship.
And friendship.
And maybe he was just like, I wish I could be part of this family.
Yeah, maybe he didn't want that nephew, or did he not really have a nephew?
He didn't have a nephew.
Oh, I see. Okay. I thought he was really... Okay, continue.
No, he hired somebody to be his nephew.
Listen, maybe just because he had hired him doesn't mean that he wouldn't be able to have a real relationship, and his fake nephew became his real nephew, and they've bonded. That's where the story will go if it's a film.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. This should be a film. So he hires this fake nephew to, like, come and have dinner with them. And he brings a bunch of his conspirators who are posing as his servants. So this night of the dinner where the nephew comes to meet them, it's to put them in, like, get them drinking, get everybody relaxed, like we're celebrating an engagement. Okay, so his companions are there, and they're carrying swords disguised as canes, and they have revolvers in their cloaks. So they're armed. And during this dinner, while everyone's eating and talking, Thomas Blood convinces Mr. Edwards, the groundskeeper guy, to show
77-year-old guy.
77-year-old dude, to show him and his companions the jewels up close. So he was like, can you just, like, we don't just, we're
Whip
friends.
Let's
go look at them. Yeah, let me see them jewels. Let me see that scepter. Anyway, they go down to the jewels, like, down below.
Right.
And him and his companions all go in there. They're like, oh, we're going to get to see them. Look how cool. And one of his companions shuts the door behind them. And they put a cloak over Mr. Edwards' head. And one of them hits him in the head with a mallet.
Oh, that's not good.
He survives. Don't worry.
Okay, good. All
yeah. Right. I kind of think that he let him survive. Anyway, point is, he hits him on the head with a mallet. And this guy goes down. He's 77. You can't. And so they tie him up and bind him. And then they're like, okay, let's do this. They steal his keys. They open up the thing, and Edward's like, there's no way this crown can fit anywhere on my person. So he just gets the mallet and he smashes it down flat.
Oh! Amazing.
Yeah, he's like, now that'll fit. He slides it into his like cloak, and he just flattens this crown.
Whoa.
Right?
Did not see that coming.
No. Well, and then they were like, they did not plan ahead very well. They're like, we only have this little bag. We want to take all of these because we're here. Why not? And so they have to file, the scepter they hold when they're like made king. Yeah. They file that down into 2 pieces. And like snap it in half and put it in a bag so it'll fit. I was
like, this is what it's like to fly somewhere when you're like, oh, I don't want to have to check my bag. Yes. I'm going to crush the royal crown so I can fit it into my carry-on.
And they have to do this super fast because they're like, they're going to wonder where we are. And so then they're like, we have to take the orb. That when they're getting crowned, they hold that like gold ball in one hand and the scepter in the other.
Right.
It's like called the royal orb or something. And
the royal orb, love it, yeah.
One guy's just like, this is going in my pants. So he puts the orb in his pants. And then they all get the rest of it and they all start to leave and they realize that someone's coming. And they're like, what do we do? And so they're all kind of panicking. And just by complete coincidence, Mr. Edward's son was getting home at that exact time from serving in the military abroad.
Oh, no.
So he had come in on a boat, and he walked in right then and was like, what are you doing?
He sees his dad like clonked out. He sees the guy with like the giant ball in his pants, like
big bulging
smashed up crown, like tucked under the arm.
Yeah. But for real, he's like, and so they all start running and they're like, just get out of here. Go find our horses. And the son is like, Dad? And the dad he like unties him.
Yeah.
And the dad's like, starts screaming, treason, murder, the crown is stolen, like over and over. And all the guards in the tower are like, oh, dang. No. So they all end up going out and looking for these people. But remember, Thomas is smart. Thomas Blood is smart, and he's like, everyone pretend to be freaking out with everybody. So they start being like, there's a person who took the, run, someone's, capture, murder.
Well, he went that way.
They were going to get away, and then that crown slipped straight out of his cloak.
Yep.
And they're like,
he flattened it too much.
He's
all, how'd that get there?
Oh, that's nothing. So it totally gives him away and he's intercepted. He is like viciously fighting. He's like fighting these guards and everybody else just starts throwing the jewels into the river and stuff like that, trying to like, yeah. And so a lot of people get away, but Thomas does not. And Thomas, ever the little turd, is like, I'm not talking to anybody. Like they chain him up and he's like, I will only answer to the king. So if you don't bring me to the king, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to talk. And they're like, fine. And so they drag him to the palace because they're like, this guy's insane. They drag him to the palace and he's being a huge pain in the neck. And the king is like, okay, I'll question him. Yeah.
Sure.
And the king is like, well, why would I let you live? What if I let you live? What are you going to do if I let you live? And he's like, I would deserve it.
I will kill you.
No, he like totally sweet talked the king. He was like, hey, look, I was going to kill you. I saw you taking a bath in the Thames the other day and I was going to kill you, but then I decided not to because I was overtaken with your majesty. Oh, and the king was like, oh.
Oh, he's all, girl.
You like me.
He's all flapping his hair back.
Yeah.
He's all, hey.
It's funny you say hair because he's the king that had that gigantic curly wig. So,
okay.
like flapping that like, yeah.
He's like, well. Oh. You can't argue with facts.
Yeah, I am the best. And I have the best hair in the kingdom.
And he's like, ooh, you watched me bathing? Interesting. Come on in.
You can stay. No, seriously, though, he pardons him fully.
Oh, nice.
He's like, we're not going to arrest him. And everyone's like, what are you talking about? He, like, stole the crown jewels. And no one really knows why the king was like, you're pardoned, but...
I would have given you the crown jewels. And then he opens up his robe.
Ta-da! And then Blood's like, I am in way too deep.
Yeah, he's like,
oh, all right.
Listen, he's pretended to be a doctor. He's pretended to be like a random, what was it? The second thing? I forget.
Oh,
where he
parson.
Sneaks in with the church person. What was parson?
Yeah, a vicar.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know.
He can pretend to be someone who's in love with the king if that'll get him his goal.
Whatever went down during the questioning, Charles was completely like enamored, like totally like charmed by this guy, because he was like teasing Charles. He's like, these jewels aren't even worth that much. They're only worth like 6,000 pounds. And Charles thought that was hilarious.
That's called negging, right? Is that the term where you're supposed to like talk down and then like,
and then bring like
yeah, then you're like, but again. I'm cool.
That's exactly what he did. He negged Charles II.
He read, what was it called? The thing that everybody was pickup artist. It was the pickup artist thing. Yeah. He pickup artist Chuck II. Chuck 2. Chuck 2 got totally pickup artisted
by Mr. Blood.
By Mr. Blood.
So he that could have been the reason. He was really charming. Like, he kind of got out of everything his whole life, just charmed his way out.
Yeah.
And they also noted that the king tended to have like a weird fondness for witty and quick scoundrels. Like, this isn't the first time he's been like impressed with somebody's handiwork. So he's like, oh, you got really far with these jewels. I respect that.
Yeah.
Some claim that he also probably, here's the thing. He probably was afraid of getting beheaded again like his dad. And these were Cromwellians. And he was like, I don't want to like stoke the fire by killing this dude. And
I see.
And, this could possibly end up bad for me. Just like my dad, I don't want to die. So I think it was a mix of a bunch of things, but he pardoned him. And this dude just started hanging out at the palace.
He's just part of it. They're like, listen, this is my homeboy, Tommy Blood. Listen, we used to hate each other, but it's the beginning of a great friendship.
And now we're in love.
Now we're thick as thieves and we're in love and we take baths together.
In the Thames, in the dirty, dirty Thames. So yeah, he starts hanging out around like the castle and the palace. And he kind of
just abandoned his family at this point.
Yeah.
All the little Bloods.
He did.
Yeah, they're still in the Netherlands being like, when's the doctor dad going to come home?
You know what? I bet they're happier there.
That's true.
The king ends up giving him a house. He's like, oh, you need somewhere to live in London?
This guy just keeps getting property.
I know.
To be a white man in this era, just keep getting houses, no matter. Houses and land, just over and over again.
Oh,
God.
I mean, the fact that he got a house out of this is insane. Like, anyway, so he starts becoming this like personality around London, and everyone's like, "Oh, there he is, the crown jewel thief," and he'd be like, "Hey, what's up, guys?"
Hey.
And he ends up like pissing a bunch of people off because he can't keep his mouth shut, and like makes fun of a bunch of dukes. Some duke sues him, and he's like, "You can't say that about me." But somehow Thomas just like gets out of it. He still has his house. And then he just like dies of old age.
He's like, eat a dick, Duke. I'm out, bitch.
Eat a Duke, dick. Yeah, exactly.
Eat a Duke, dick.
He totally became like this little like character, and then he died at home.
That's the future I foresee for myself.
I think that's a
just
really good.
Talking shit left and right, and then just be like, cool, I'm going to go home and die now.
Out.
Bye.
Peace.
Yeah.
And his funeral epitaph read,
yeah.
Here lies the man who boldly hath run through more villainies than England ever knew, and ne'er to any friend he had was true. Here let him then by all unpitied lie, and let's rejoice his time was come to die. So
this guy sounds like Jack Sparrow, basically.
Yeah, everyone's like, this is the guy. I mean, we're glad he's dead, but,
He was a cool guy. He was interesting. Cool. He was fun at parties.
And then the best part about this is that after they buried him, everyone's like, how do we know that was him?
Oh.
Are we sure that was him? And so they go dig him up just to make sure that it was actually him. And it was him. He's like Andy Kaufman. Andy Kaufman.
We don't actually know if he's alive or dead.
So that's Thomas Blood. And I found where he was buried. And I got obsessed with him. And I've opened so many tags. Tabs? Tags.
Tags, tabs.
Did
it's
I
all the
just
same.
have a stroke?
It's okay. Tommy Blood.
I hope that Thomas Blood, he's come the closest to stealing the crown jewels of anybody in history.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
He certainly destroyed them, right? If nothing else, he ruined them. That's awesome.
I just love the idea of him with a mallet being like, this isn't going to fit.
This is like a Looney Tunes cartoon. Like, he's just like, bling. And they're like, stop, Thomas Blood. And they drop an anvil on his head. And he's like,
yeah, and he's like,
falls over. Yeah.
He goes off a cliff. dynamite's involved. Oh yeah, so yeah, my adventures in England led me to the grave of Thomas Blood.
I love Thomas Blood's efforts to try to kill a duke and then deciding to destroy the crown jewels instead.
I also learned that after they were destroyed, the same crown has been like recapitulated multiple times because it keeps getting destroyed.
Yeah. How old? Do you know how old it is?
It's old. Well, in some form or another, this crown has existed for hundreds and hundreds of years. It's still around now, but just in a new form.
Yeah. So you're saying that if we go to England, we can pay some 80-year-old guy to go look at the crown jewels?
Not anymore. They just let you see them now. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But
have you been to the Tower of London?
I don't remember. I don't think so. I haven't been to London last time I was in London was like 2006, maybe. It's been a while. 7?
I'm gonna send you a picture of Thomas Blood because he is the smuggest looking douchebag
Tom Blood.
I've ever seen.
Yep, that seems right.
There we go.
Cool. It just honestly, it kind of looks like me with a wig on and no beard.
It does. Weird. I do the eyebrow thing. Here, let me try. Hang out.
Yeah, just shave my beard and then give me like a wig with like Lloyd Christmas bangs and then like a mullet.
He does have Lloyd Christmas bangs.
Tom Blood.
Wow. Tommy Blood.
Thank you.
So yeah, that's my tab. And should we do this? Oh no, we got to count down.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you for that. We made it through the story. That was a good one. I like Tom Blood a lot. Also, I like that I could just say Tom Blood, Sam Worrell.
Tom Blood.
Sam
Tommy Blood
Blood.
is a good name. There's
Tom
actually there's a boxer, I think an Irish boxer who took the name Tom Blood as his like
Blood.
boxing name or something.
Okay. What do we want to do here?
Oh,
do you want to do? There's a lot of options. We can do
a mallet crushing a bunch of metal.
Clearly, yes.
Duh. Okay, sorry, Alyssa, but if you could get like some crunch,
and then maybe the
crunching metal,
and then the things too. Like I want to hear the birds like beep, 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 like flying over their heads.
So he crushes
just
the crown.
Looney Tunes, yeah.
Looney Tunes crown crushing.
Looney Tunes crown crushing.
Okay, with a mallet. Okay,
with a mallet.
You want to count down? I don't remember who did it.
Okay,
last
I'll do it.
Okay, I will.
Ready? 3, 2, 1. Close it.
We closed it.
We closed it. All right, wonderful. Moving on to listener emails. I will go first.
All right.
Our first email is from Sean from someplace far away.
Oh my gosh,
Sean
is
did
this
not
my
tell
husband?
us. I don't know. It's possible.
No, he doesn't listen to the podcast.
Although Sean does start the email with saying "Howdy, y'all," which makes me think it's like maybe Texas or something. I don't know.
Maybe
I'm stereotyping here, but most of the people I know from Texas are the ones who would say that. But Sean, howdy, y'all. I've had this tab on my phone opened for a while, and I think this is the perfect way to let it go by sharing the very important subject of why Greek statues all have tiny junk.
Oh yeah, they do. That's tiny.
In brief, there was a belief that penis size represented the inverse of a man's intellect, rational thought, and control over his urges.
Oh.
Big brain, tiny dick, basically, is what they thought.
That's so opposite today.
Oh, he goes on to say, I like to picture how things would look if this were the standard now.
Oh.
Imagine insecure douchebags buying smart cars or tiny pistols to compensate for their overly large members. Quote, I swear I'm only 2 inches, not like that dork over there. I hear he's rocking a shameful 10 inches. Cue everyone pointing and laughing. Something tangentially related, I think you'll appreciate. My wife is a preschool teacher, and the preschool started a program where the teachers had to do activities centered around specific subjects. Okay. One of these subjects was balls, like footballs, baseballs, etc. And there was a song for the class to sing to the tune of Bingo. B-A-L-L-S, 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 and we have lots of balls.
Sean.
Keep up the amazing work, Sean. Sean, thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
I will always read an email that has to do with ancient Greek slander.
Oh yeah, if you didn't, you wouldn't. You'd be
I wouldn't be Persian.
Your
exactly
ancestors.
My Persian roots. So Thank you for that. I like the inverse theory. Also, I like the idea of everybody who buys smart cars because they want to overcompensate for the fact they have gigantic wieners.
That would be a really crazy world.
Yeah, thanks, Sean.
Right.
I feel like Sean would be good in our writer's room if we ever wrote a show that was based on this insane podcast.
Is that our end goal?
I don't know. I'm just saying right now, I'm like, those are some good ideas right there. Like, I can write a whole story about a guy with a huge wiener in a tiny car.
Yeah. Email number 2 is from Olivia from York, England, which this fits in well with them. Hello, Kaveh and Hannah. I absolutely love the podcast. Thank you.
Oh.
I have only been listening for about a week, but I have finished all the episodes already.
Oh,
LOL.
my God.
Wow. This has to do with... This is awesome. Okay. My tab that I keep coming back to is how Queen Victoria gave hemophilia, a blood disorder, to a bunch of the European monarchs. Have you heard about this?
She sounds like the real Sam... Or I can call him Sam Blood now. The Thomas Blood.
No, Victoria's like kind of her blood disorder is like the reason things are all met. Anyway, well, I bet she goes on to say that. So, such as Spain, Russia, and Germany. This included the heir to the Tsardom during the Russian Revolution in 1917, which led to the rising influence of Rasputin due to his healing abilities. So, like Peter, whatever, I think his name is Peter. The kid.
Yeah, didn't he just always tell him to like not take aspirin or something?
Or something.
He was like, No, I remember this. It was like he would always tell him to keep the doctors away while he was gone.
Yeah.
And then because they gave him like aspirin that was like a blood thinner, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And so when the doctors wouldn't give it to him, he would feel better. And then they were like, oh shit, I guess Rasputin's like really smart.
Magic. When really he's just like, don't listen to doctors. And it worked out well.
Yeah, he's all, don't get vaccinated.
But that's the blood
5G.
disorder he inherited. Because her daughter married the Russian Tsar.
Victoria Blood.
Yeah. Victoria Blood.
I bet you Tommy Blood was her father, probably. That seems like another avenue that he would have gone to achieve his goals. You know what?
I'm going to impregnate this lady and become
I wouldn't
the king
put it past
England.
him.
No, me neither. Nah. Okay, so it has been so prevalent across the continent because of intermarriage, yippee, that it has even been nicknamed the royal disease.
The royal disease.
I want to say that I am actively opening more tabs because of this podcast, but I'm learning lots, so I think it's still a self-help podcast, right? I have also informed every one of my friends that pandas have micropenises and shit 40 times a day.
And they drive huge cars.
Gigantic cars, yeah. Yeah. And they're being subjected to as many facts as I can feasibly explain, and I hope opening more tabs because of it too. I can't wait to listen to more episodes. I genuinely love this podcast so much, and it makes me so happy to add to my collection of open tabs and diversify from New York Times connections, which I have opened over and over again. Thank you so much for making this podcast all the best, Olivia. That's super nice, Olivia.
Wonderful. Thank you, Olivia. Yeah. Also, I do love New York Times Connections. That game is really fun.
Me too.
Do you play that one?
Yeah, every day.
I prefer that one
Wordle?
to Wordle. Although I still do Wordle. I do them all just because I have to do something like to take a little break. And it's like an easy thing. Not easy, but it's like a thing to play. But I prefer Connections to Wordle myself.
Oh, interesting. I like the crossword. Because
the crossword's fun too. Anything to stay sharp when you're our age.
We are not old. We're not old.
Speak for yourself. Anyway, cool. Thank you, Olivia. That was a wonderful and nice email. Thank you for catching up. Thank you for telling your friends about the podcast.
Yeah.
Hopefully
it doesn't alienate them, and hopefully they just come listen. So
yeah, who knows? Cool. I'm worried about people from the UK continuing to listen to us after this episode, but them's the ropes. That's how it goes.
I don't know how to say. I don't know how to say how much I genuinely love the UK.
You do, yes.
I love it. Anyway, go on.
You love it. Anyway, if you guys have an email that you'd like to submit to us, please send it to 500opentabs@gmail.com. That's 500. Let us know something that you learned that's fun. Give us a quick little blurb about it, and don't forget to send the link. Additionally, I thought this might be fun. We'll test it and see if anybody is interested in doing this. We thought it might be fun if you want to send like a voice memo, like if you want to keep it like under a minute and sort of give us a little blurb. It would be fun to also hear people's voices and maybe include that on the show. If you're comfortable doing it, keep it under a minute.
Yeah.
Also continue to keep make sure you include the link and all that stuff. But we'll see if anybody does it, if we're able to make it work. But we thought we'd throw it out there. Additionally, as you said at the top of the show, we have a Patreon that you could submit to. Please give us a chance to grow. Please tell your friends.
Yes.
Please support us. Please follow us on Instagram. We're at 500 Open Tabs. The Discord link is in the notes. Don't forget 500 Open Roads, which is the YouTube link, also in the notes. And obviously YouTube. We're on YouTube. Go watch us on YouTube. Share us on YouTube.
You get to see some pictures and like facial expressions.
Yeah. What else we want to talk about? We got San Diego coming up. We're going to be hearing more and more about it.
San Diego Comic-Con. I think Saturday tickets are sold out, but there might still be tickets for other days.
Or just sneak in somehow like Tom Blood did. Just be like, I'm a doctor. I have to come into San Diego to go see this amazing panel that the 500 Open Tabs people are hosting.
And do not forget the mallet. That is a huge part of sneaking into somewhere.
We do not endorse bringing weapons into the Comic-Con, just so you know.
Fine. You are no fun.
I could just see us getting arrested later.
That's fine.
Or me, anyway. Continue, sorry.
Oh, I have a book. It's going up for pre-sale. It's up for pre-sale right now. Cat People by Hannah Hillam. Get it from wherever.
Go check it out.
That's it. Yeah.
Go pre-order it.
I think it's good. If I look at it, I'll get angry.
I don't know. See. I still haven't seen it. I assume that it exists. At least there's a cover. There's a cover that's on this website. That I can't say that it's not like a House of Cards, but...
Look, it's all so I can steal some jewels. You also
true.
have a bunch of books. Do you have them online?
I have many books. Yes, I have all my books. You can get them at blacksmithfilms.com. That is my website where I sell all my stuff.
Also, thank you, Alyssa.
Thank you, Alyssa. You,
our wonderful editor,
continue to make us look and sound good, despite the contrary, which is that we do
Shut
not.
Up.
Anyway, that's it, everybody. Come back next week. We'll have more fun stories for you. And in the meantime, keep it Josie.
Keep it Josie. See ya.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.